So one of my big interests at the moment is technology and how we can use technology, modern day technology, in order to, I guess, promote mental health and emotional health, which is what I'm working on for myself personally at the moment. But when I look back at my time in Cambodia, I was using finding ways on how to use technology for philanthropic purposes. How can I use technology in order to help a company grow, or an individual grow, or a community even. And throughout my time there, I realized the fact that you know now a 15-year-old kid in, say, Africa, who lives in a rural village in Africa, if he has access to a smartphone and he can access the internet, he now has just as much information as what someone else, what an elite person had 100 years ago. And that kind of access to information allows for so much growth and opportunity. And this access to educational resources is something that can really, really grow a society, especially like Cambodia, who have, they've only 40, 50 years ago suffered from the Khmer Rouge, and the education system was just torn to shreds, and so they've had to rebuild their society. And one of the biggest humanitarian crises of Cambodian history was that demolition of their education system, I guess. So now with the internet and this access to global information, they're really we can really use technology in order to educate them and move them forward as a community. So that's one thing. In terms of mental and emotional health, which is something that I like to touch on a lot, and I've worked on it a lot with myself. You know, um, a, a lot of people believe that technology is a detriment to them, to their mental and emotional health, and that's probably true to some point. But I guess it's the way you approach technology. So I listened to a man named Dr. Ray Kurzweil. He's head of engineering at Google, and he's a co-founder of the Singularity course. And he's written many books. He's a futurist, and he talks a lot about emerging technologies and artificial intelligence, and how this emergence of artificial intelligence and new technology is going to change the world around us. And you know, he he was speaking of something really interesting once, and this really spoke to me and gave me a new perspective on technology. Because I think about technology, and it has been a detriment in my life before. Facebook and its notifications. There are engineers working in Facebook who design who are designing the this interaction, and the experience, the user experience, while you're on Facebook. And they're looking into the human psyche and trying to figure out ways on how to make things more appealing and more addictive. And something as simple as that notification, the sound of the notification, that releases dopamine. And that can be addictive. Dopamine is addictive. So being able to use it in the right way is very important. And Ray Kurzweil talks about how technology, if you look at technology, what's happened here is us as humans, we've tried to evolve, and the best way for us to evolve would be to grow our brains. If we could grow our brains, we could become smarter, and that would be the best way to evolve. However, we're limited in how much we can grow our brains, because the female at birth, there is the female body at birth is very limited to how much it can push out. So in order for us to become smarter as a species, we're going to have to grow our brains, and we're not able to. We're limited because of childbirth. So how we've evolved, I guess, is we've created these technologies. We have smartphones now, and if you look at it, the smartphone and a computer is just an extension of our mind. So because we haven't been able to grow our brains, we've created these technologies that make us smarter without having to grow our brains. This thing has access to so much information, so there's no need to grow the brain to store more memory and become smarter, because the smartphone does that for us. So if the smartphone, this really put it into perspective for me, because if the smartphone, which is, I guess it's an object that if you take a picture of the modern day man today, he is likely to have a smartphone in his hand. I guess that's the stereotype of the modern day person in 2019. A picture of someone with a smartphone in their hands, or they're lost into their smartphones, and this is going to become increasingly a thing. The more we go on, the more we're going to be absorbed by our technology. It's just a natural occurrence. It's the evolution of technology itself. So if you put it like that, then, and technology is an extension of ourselves, and you feel as though your smartphone or whatever it is part of you, which it is now, then shouldn't we then treat it as if it were the body, or sort of like our physical body? So one thing I've been doing is I have an analogy where your Facebook newsfeed is like your physical body, and depending on what you put in your body will determine how healthy you are physically. Now, if that's the case, if you want good health, you're going to put good foods, nutritious foods in your body. With the Facebook newsfeed, I compare that to the Facebook newsfeed in my analogy, where, it depends what you're feeding yourself, the content. The content that you flood your newsfeed with is how healthy you want your mind to be. You're the one that's engaged in this content. You're the one that's constantly absorbed. You spend so many hours on your newsfeed, and if it's not your newsfeed, it's on your phone doing something else. So if that's the case, then flooding your newsfeed, what I've done recently is I've gotten rid of a lot of the stuff that I didn't want, and I've filled my newsfeed up with educational content. And that educational content is a way of me fueling, like I said with the physical body, it's like putting nutritious foods into my body. It's putting, I guess, nutritious knowledge and nutritious content into my mind. And this has been, since doing this, I think I've done this for about 6 months now, and since doing this, it's transformed my life completely. I would say it's rewired my brain. It's contributed to rewiring my brain, because now, it's the same as if you went on a really healthy diet for 6 months. You'd feel like a new person. You'd have a new body, and that's what's been the result with me. I've flooded my news feed, and all of my apps, productivity, they're productive apps, and educational content on my news feed, and that has transformed my mind. So I go back to this, technology being an extension of our minds. It is part of us, and yes, it can be a detriment, just the same as eating McDonald's for your body can be a detriment to your body. So it's really about working with technology rather than against it, rather than sitting there and helplessly saying, this is no good, I'm addicted, I have these bad habits, etc., etc. We all do. We all have the bad habits, and it's, I guess it's just the natural cycle. It's what's happening, and instead of fighting it off, you work with it. So that's one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. How we can use technology to benefit us rather than be a detriment, and that's one thing I wanted to share today.